I am coming to you live with thoughts on Arsenal 2, Olympiacos nil. That was a game of proper football where you traveled through a lot of feelings. Arsenal made a blistering start. Just some overview on the game. Blistering start, impressive, irrepressible. Odegaard with lots of speedy runners in front of him and around him. Zubimendi and Marino in their reunion, right? Real Sociedad reunion. And what was cool about this game was it was basically a better situation to last week's midweek, where you're playing a better opponent, you're playing at home, you're getting players back into fitness. And I know a lot of fans have spoken, on some of the call-in shows that I've been watching and listening to in England. But let's not forget this: you're playing against a Champions League opponent, and it's the first home game of the season, and the lineup is what it is. About six or so changes from the game in Newcastle. Um, so you've played a really good game, at Newcastle. There's a lot of emotions involved and a lot of exertion, physical exertion that players have had to put out. Declan Rice, and I'm happy that him and Timber did not start this game, because if any player deserves a break, it's them two. And I think Gabriel, for me, would have also been another one that deserved a break from playing in this game. But yeah, it's basically, a game of getting people in, and it's the Champions League. It's a game that means something. So, because it's the other thing, I think a lot of people, they want to see a 10 out of 10 performance every game, which is not going to happen. But also people want to see the youngsters being played and keep the 10 out of 10 performance. And then you got to play your squad players somewhere. And when you don't use your bench and you don't use your players, and then you crumble in the spring, March, April, May, because you've used some players too much and underused others, that's also a problem. And in this game, I think the cool thing, here, let me share my screen real quick. Lewis Skelly in for Calafiori, and that's a really healthy competition, by the way, between them two. Lewis Skelly in for Calafiori. Gabriel keeps his place. Saliba starts instead of Mosquera. Ben White is in for Timber. And this is a good, solid lineup. You can start a Premier League game with this, a meaningful Premier League game with this lineup. This is the midfield that started against Leeds when Odegaard hurt his shoulder. We're going to talk about him. He was playing like a man possessed yesterday. And then Trossard keeps his place. He keeps his place, Gyökeres, and Martinelli comes on the right wing instead of Saka. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 changes. And yes, these guys know how to play together. Gabriel and Saliba. Odegaard is a plug-and-play player in this team. But this is another, again, a sign of teething, maturation of the squad, how to play together, how to do certain things like defensively, how to do certain things on the ball. And as we saw, the fluency wasn't lacking. This team was able to play together. The problem was not the team playing together or the fluency. The problem was, I think a lot of these guys were working themselves back to fitness. Ben White hasn't had a lot of minutes. He's trying to play himself back into fitness, and you saw he started fading as the game went on. So, Arsenal made a really good start. Within the first 5 minutes, Martinelli had a header from a Louis Skelly cross that he should have scored, or at least given the keeper some trouble. Um, but he doesn't make good contact with the ball. It hits his shoulder. It just bubbles down, and it comes to nothing. MLS, another player who's coming on, having not seen as many starts as maybe some people would have expected at this point of the season, comes in. He shows his own interpretation of how to do the left back role. He's more Zinchenko than Calafiori, but he's definitely more like robust than Zinchenko in his duels. He's a better, at this stage of their careers, better athletes and better combatant when it comes to like taking his player on man, and defensively he's no slouch. He's a strong boy. He's like a bull. He's like Timber in a way. But what I like about MLS's game is that he's brave. He was happy to receive the ball anywhere on the pitch. In the middle of the park, he will travel into the zones. He will drive with the ball. He had a few drives yesterday, actually, where he won some fouls. And yes, when it doesn't work out, it looks ugly. But a lot of people tend to forget what he gives us when it does work, and how much risk is involved in the way this boy plays. And to be doing that at night, he just turned 19 now. To be doing that at 19 and 18 last season, I mean, that's balls, the likes of which you are not likely to see in many people at any age in their respective professions. This kid, he's an absolute footballer, man. Like he's going to see a lot of minutes. Him and Calafiori, I think, are a healthier competition than maybe Timber White at the right back position. I think Timber is definitely ahead of Ben White, in my opinion, in terms of the all-around game that he gives Arsenal. But Ben White is still going to be a very important player. So I'm not ever going to disrespect Ben White and what he gives to the team. But I do think there's more of a diversity benefit in what's happening in the left. And I think something is brewing there when Arsenal fans are not talking about the left-hand side anymore. There's been a lot of talk previously about like the left is da-da-da, we're too right-sided heavy. And we're fixing that in a variety of ways. And MLS's progression is really helpful to that. And then again, another chance for Arsenal through a very beautiful pass by Odegaard, who had a stormer in this game, right through. He had a stormer. You could see later on in the game that he was starting to fade a little bit, which makes sense. He hasn't had a lot of reps in running 90 minutes, but he plays Gyökeres through, and Gyökeres' shot is saved by the keeper. It bubbles onto the post, and the cool thing is Martinelli taps it in. It was so, because Martinelli could have gotten to that ball the way it was going so slow. He could have gotten to that ball before it hit the post and tapped it in himself. But that was some good teammate play there by Martinelli to see if the ball was going to go on its own and it be Gyökeres' goal. Because I think this team is really supportive of one another. I know there's competition, and fans sometimes maybe get more upset when people don't play than I think some of the players get upset. And Martinelli, who's been on a hot streak, coming off the bench, is doing something from the start. And he actually says this in post-match interview. So I thought it during the game, and I think some other people were talking about it online. And Martinelli confirms it in his post-match game that yes, he wanted to see if the ball was going to go in and for it to be Vic's goal. But it hits the post, or he does what he needs to do, and 1-0 Arsenal. And another thing that continued from the weekend in this game was Trossard roaming and playing very narrow. And I think Arsenal are going to be doing this quite a bit, actually. And it's going to be interesting to see that with Eze in the Trossard role and Odegaard in what's been the Eze 10 role. Like them two playing as twin tens, almost like Eze did with um, with Trossard at Newcastle. We saw a lot of that from the beginning in this game, and that was really cool. And I'll be honest, like Trossard's performances are not 9, 10 out of tens, but they are also like pretty solid sevens. Like he's doing some good work for the team because he has, at this point in time, him and Martinelli are our two fittest frontline players. Gyökeres has been building himself up because he didn't have a preseason. Havertz, we haven't seen him since 20 minutes at Old Trafford. Saka is coming back after, doing his hamstring in the Leeds game, and he's played a lot more in the last 7 to 10 days. But he's also building himself to fitness. I might be missing somebody else, but like Trossard is having to play a lot, and that's okay because he already understands like the offense, and I don't think there's an issue there. I think people are too worried about who's starting and who's not. That's my opinion. I think a lot of these guys need to be used and they need to be engaged. And Ateta said so himself that it's important to make people feel valued and to make people not just because it's a participation prize, but because these are players now you trust. And I know for a fact that I've been wanting Ateta to use his squad more broadly. And I've been most critical of him as it pertains to that. So then I can't turn around when he starts using certain players, that I don't, the fact that he's using his squad, it may involve using players that I don't think he should use. And by the way, that's not Trossard. I actually like Trossard's involvement in most of Arsenal games, whether it's from the start or from the bench. I know a lot of people have relegated him to a bench role, but I think this guy is rightfully getting minutes. Him and Merino, I think, are the new like target for what used to be the Granit Xhaka role or what used to be the Mustafi role. I think sometimes fans like to have a player to focus things on. If it's not the manager is usually the one who takes a lot of stick for things. But I think there's usually a player, you know, it could be Andre Santos, it could be Sebastian Schillaci, it could be Mikel Silvestre coming to Arsenal late in his career. There's a lot of that kind of treatment. And I think we are looking for somebody in this team to be that guy. Madueke almost became that before he kicked the ball. Like he was going to stop us from winning. Like I don't think of it that way personally. I think Merino, actually moving on from Trossard to another guy that people don't seem to like unless when he scores a goal for us. I think he had a very good game in midfield. He had some really nice touches in those first 20 minutes. And he had a good first half. He had a really, really good first half. And by halftime, I remember writing Merino at halftime has had the most dribbles completed. He played 58 minutes, but before he left, he had the most dribbles completed. He had the most duels won. I think it was like 6 or something like that. Or tackle one, and most tackles that was 6. He had the most duels won, most in the match. Okay, most dribbles completed, most dribbles. Sorry, let me start over here. Most dribbles completed, most chances created in the match, and he also had most duels won. And that was something you're not going to hear a lot of people say. And yes, people are going to be like, stats don't matter, but like he's there to play a role, and he was playing it, and he was doing a good job at it. Because again, you don't want to play Declan Rice every game, guys. Like I know a lot of people don't want to see Mikel Merino, and they're not interested in what he's doing well. They just want to see him come off the bench and Declan Rice play 70 minutes, 90 minutes every game. That's not going to win us the league. We've done that the last couple of years, and it hasn't done us any favors. And Olympiacos, even though Arsenal were very dominant, Olympiacos were still doing what they can to put pressure on the game. And they had the best chance of the game, I would say. Oh, sorry, their best chance of the game was when Podence, in the 20th minute, um, forces Raya to produce a brilliant save with the first time kind of like shot on the half volley/volley. I don't even know, don't remember if it bounced or not, but like it was a cross that he connected with almost immediately, like without taking a touch to control it. And David Raya was so quick with his reflexes. I don't know how he saved that. I really don't know how he saved that. That should have been 1-1 at that time. Um, and yeah, Martinelli had a few chances. Again, like he had an overhead kick that was a little bit soft that went off target. Gyökeres and Martinelli had a couple of nice exchanges, 1-2. And then Gyökeres is played through actually from one of those exchanges and takes a lot of contact from a defender and can't run through. And this is the thing with Gyökeres. I don't know if it's him who invites contact or he gets blown differently because he's a big boy. But like there were a few times where the players were a little too physical with him here, and I was like, "Oh, that could have been a foul." But yeah, and a few times as well, Gyökeres doesn't do himself favors by wanting to have the most perfect setup to take a shot. He takes a little bit too long sometimes to let the ball fly. He can take his shot a bit quicker, but you know, maybe when he's sharper, he will do that. We don't know, but he's doing a lot more things better at the moment. Gyökeres, he's becoming a lot more useful outside of the box. I didn't really, see that in the first 3 to 4 games of the season. Started to see it a bit more away at St. James's Park for sure, and I saw it again in this game. So that's repeatable, as well as the narrow Trossard role. That's repeatable, and Saka flying towards the left later on in the game. Another thing that I think we can do more of. So there's a lot of positives in this game. To me, it was not purely a fitness exercise because there was something on the line here, but the team was playing really well. And I might be forgetting a player or two, and forgive me for that. But like Ben White, I'm focusing more for me on the health because like that's going to be what's going to win us things this year. Um, and yeah, Gyökeres missed the chance to cross to Martinelli. Takes too long to shot. The shot is blocked. And then, but to move on from there, like I think another player to focus on here is Ben White. He had a decent game, but you can tell he is really trying to play himself back to fitness. He's not fit yet, and I think he did 70 minutes last week at Port Vale. This game, he did something similar. Did 58 minutes. Him and Marino came out on 58 minutes. Um, that's pretty good. As long as he comes out of these unscathed and he's fit, we're to the business end of the season, or as we progress towards the business end of the season, that's good enough. And I think that's the thing that's going under the radar here with a lot of people getting upset about performances. I understand like performances need to be good, and this one was to me for the most part. I don't agree that this was a bad performance, but I do also see that we were not going to dominate a fit team that's up for the physical duels. We're not going to dominate them for the entirety of the game. They were going to have moments, and they did have moments, but those moments were also created by the fact that we wasted chances. We can't say we were wasteful and then we were crap. You know what I mean? Maybe we were crap because our finishing was crap, but I don't think we were crap because our game model and the coaching was crap and the way we were playing football all around was crap. I don't think that's the case. I think the finishing or lack thereof, Trossard missed a few chances. Our forwards wasted opportunities. Martin Odegaard has a chance to also give it 2-0 late in the game. We had so many chances. Like, I'm not going to slate the team for. for that and say it was a bad performance, because I don't think it was. I can't with a sober mind speak of this as a bad performance, unless maybe bad performance is speaking specifically of our performance in the box once we've created that isolated part of the game. We can do better. But we always say, like, it's more concerning to not create the chances, right? And then have the strikers have to live off of scraps than to create chances and have them be wasted and missed and all of that. I think for me, I like our chances as long as we're creating. We'll find a way. And yes, we were almost punished in this game because there was like a late penalty check that could have made it 1-1 again unnecessarily, because in the Champions League, penalties get given for handball. The ball touches your hand, it's a handball, and all that kind of stuff. And in the second half, there's a lot. It wasn't as incident packed as the first half was, but like Trossard had a nice opening and he shoots wide from a Merino pass, by the way. Two players again who have been seemingly pushed aside by a lot of people in terms of like what their value is to the squad. I don't want to make them sound like they're heroes or anything, but I think every squad needs players like that who can step in so that the big steppers don't have to do the hard yards all the time. And 56 minutes, I see that this is 2 minutes before Ben White gets subbed, actually. Podence skips past him really easily. He had a near penalty call, but he did make contact with the ball later on in that first half or early in that second half. I don't remember exactly the timing of that. And then Merino and him come off for who came on for them too? Let me see. I think the first subs Arsenal made Timber and Declan Rice. See, like, so without using Ben White, Timber is playing again another game from the start. And without using Merino, Declan Rice is playing yet another game 3 days after he had a Superman central midfield display away at Newcastle. You got to give players places to breathe. We can't say players are being overused and then complain when we're rotating people in to give them the rest that they need. 60th minute, lovely dribble from MLS. This is where I started to worry, actually, like when he was starting, not about MLS himself. This is where I was starting to worry about Arsenal's impetus in the game. I felt like Arteta could have helped a little bit more because Zubimendi gets a yellow card. Gabriel got a yellow card just before the subs as well. And at this time, 61 minutes, you have two people on yellow cards, and they've both played quite a bit. And I thought Gabriel was going to be another player who should have gotten a rest from the start. So I was starting to feel like, oof, what are we doing here? This is looking a little sketch. And I was like, we have to watch the yellow cards. And I was thinking like Gabriel should come off. They eventually did for Mosquera, not because of the yellow cards, but because he had taken a kick early on in the game and he'd been playing through a pain or something. Excuse me. Arteta does later on says he should be fine to play over the weekend. At least that's the expectation. But I immediately say after that, like second yellow card, I was like, I think Arsenal should bring on Eze and Saka to see this game off. Trossard can't finish his dinner again with the keeper that denies him this time. So Trossard has a couple of really good chances. So he finds the good spaces and just didn't, finish like you would expect him to, because he's usually good in front of goal. He's just, sometimes not going to score them all the time, of course. But, two really good chances in that second half for Trossard. And then soon after that second missed chance, Olympiacos scores, but it's ruled off for offside. And then this is when I start panicking. I'm like, the subs should have been brought in to change this game sooner. This is after they scored the game, that goal that got ruled off for offside or something. I said that check took a little bit longer than it felt a lot longer than it did in real life. Um, and then in the 73rd minute, Saka and Eza come on for Martinelli and Trossard, and I would like to say that changed the game for good, but it didn't really. Like, yes, we continue to threaten them, um, and Odegaard should have scored in that chance in the 83rd minute. And I complain in that moment, like, Arsenal have been wasteful here. This game should be long over by now. This is after that Odegaard miss in the 83rd minute. And then Chiquinho forces Raya to make another good save in the 85th minute. I'm like, man, these guys are really fighting for their 1-1 here, or maybe steal it late. And I think people forget that Olympiacos has been hard for Arsenal in Europe. But then they make a triple sub in the 86th minute. And then that 88th minute handball check. Again, the game is still 1-0. So, yes, it wasn't, swashbuckling and, murder your opponent type of game. But sometimes you want to be in games like this, especially when you're not doing it with your best 11 players all the time. Doesn't matter. We deserved to win this game. We were not lucky. We just made it harder than it needed to be because we were wasteful. And the game, yes, maybe had draw written all over it under different circumstances, but no one can say Arsenal did not deserve to win this game. And Saka makes it 2-0 in the 92nd minute from a scrumptious pass, or delicious pass by Martin Odegaard, who had, for me, been the one player, if you could say who did not deserve to be on a losing team, it's him. That was a man of the match performance. And I think at Newcastle, he was already like showing signs of like, okay, I hear all this as a talk. He's a good player and I'm happy to have him in the team, but don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. I'm still that guy. And you know what? Unlike many people, I'm not going to be forced to choose between these two guys. I'm happy they both play for Arsenal. They're both great players that are going to help Arsenal do things this year they have not been able to do in the previous 3 to 4 years, and maybe even longer. We're better off for having better players in the team. We don't have to pit them against each other. Let the outside world to do all of that. As the fans, I think we should just enjoy having these beautiful, talented footballers. And for once, we're going into games now not as the underdogs, but as the hunted. And yes, we haven't won anything so far, but that's the status of this team right now. I love it. I look forward to the West Ham game at the weekend, but I think we go back to that game, in my opinion, having a Rice that didn't play 90 minutes in midfield, having an Eze and Saka that didn't play too much as well because they're being built up. So you can bring those guys back in from the start, playing at home, right? You can maybe rest Zubimendi if you want and play with 2 8s because West Ham are going to give you the ball with Nuno. They are. Odegaard left 8 as a right 8. And then on the left wing, you can have Martinelli if you want and Saka on the right wing. You can start that way. And then you bring in off Merino and Trossard off the bench. And back four, go back to what it's been for the last 5 or 6 Premier League games, right? Calafiori, Gabi and Saliba, Timber right back, Rice in the 6 if you want, and but I think what he's probably going to end up doing is he's going to have Eze on the left to do the Trossard role, like, the Eze, but what Trossard has been doing, and then Odegaard in. I think Odegaard will play, and I think Zubimendi and Rice will play. Wouldn't necessarily go that way, but I think that's what he will do. Um, so anyway, guys, I'm gonna end this one here. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.